So we've done the I'm Jonty, I'm Malky, etc. So that's the proper.
Wow.
Yeah.
So erasing the female voice from the podcast.
Excuse me, I'm the female voice. And anything to the contrary is transphobic. This is what J.K. Rowling was afraid of. Guys, we've just finished recording this episode. We need to tell people why they should carry on listening and what the highlights were. What are the highlights, Laura?
Gratuitous Tory bashing.
So much Tory bashing. Plus some explanations of the British political system for our foreign chums.
But in a fun, cool way.
Fun, cool way, not boring at all, carry on listening kind of way.
You're here for the drama, you're going to get it.
You're going to hear what kind of prime minister and politicians we want. That's the most recent thing we discussed, which is right at the end.
Which is all we can think of.
All we can remember. We answered some listeners' question. Readers' wives, listeners' husbands. I don't know. Sorry.
Our listeners don't have wives.
That's true. Listeners' question time. Like prime. I'm having a stroke. What's happening? Okay, Malky, what else is there?
We define Christianity for everybody.
We define Christianity.
Tell them all
yes.
Who's in, who's out.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
if you want to know, keep listening.
And somebody who uses Beer Christianity as a church, which frankly you should do too, because that seems like a healthy thing for us to be promoting.
Honestly, hilarious. I love it.
Meeting up. It's so cool, actually. It's
Very
so good.
cool.
So yeah, some of our amazing listeners, our not so amazing Prime Minister in the UK, and the problem with following laws rather than integrity / something systemic. Is that a good thing?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Anyway, carry on listening. Here's the episode. Hey, welcome to Beer Christianity. My name is Jonty.
I'm Laura.
And I'm Malky.
Wow, that was seamless. Episode 60.
One?
No, two. I did one after
Short
60.
counts as episodes.
You guys have actually even listened to some of the episodes recently.
I listened to the most recent short and the beginning of episode 60, but an hour ago.
And what did you think of these episodes?
I think we're funny. I was like, yeah.
Good.
I think that whole tired thing, that's funny. I like
that. Oh, the song. I'd forgotten we did it as a musical. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so if you haven't listened to all the way to the end of episode 60, jump back on that and catch that.
You really should, Laura. Give us a reprise.
I'm tired. I don't want to go to sleep.
So
which I have
happy.
a lot of practice saying because I showed my housemate that, who was also a listener of the podcast, and every time I'm like, oh, I'm tired, he's like, you tired? I'm like, yes.
This makes me very happy. I'm so glad. And what was the short about? I don't even remember what it was about. It was me, I'm assuming. It
was about how rich people never get the police call on them, basically.
Ah, yeah. Yeah. We're going to come back to that as a subject a little bit later, because we're going to talk a little bit about what's been happening in the news in the United Kingdom and the government that we have got that we deserve. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. We're also going to be talking a little bit about listener feedback. We've got some lovely messages on Twitter and on email, and we're going to bless you, Laura. She turned off her mic and everything, but I'm just going to snot shame her.
Brilliant.
What are we drinking tonight, Markster?
I am drinking beer, but plot twist, ginger beer.
Oh.
Old
the
Jamaican.
Original non-alcoholic beer.
Or maybe with root beer. I think Bart Simpson would drink root beer.
Yeah, I mean...
He's American, though.
Yeah,
like, ginger beer, I feel like, is an English thing.
No,
or a British
ginger beer is a Jamaican thing.
Oh, is it a Jamaican thing? I am incorrect.
I realized at some point you guys owned a lot of the world, so you claimed
mistakes. Apologies.
The one English person on the podcast, and she makes an imperialist error. Wow, classic.
Yikes.
Let's just move just straight on to what you've been drinking. Not what you've been drinking, what you are drinking.
Well, interesting question, because what I've been drinking is nothing, because I did dry January, except for the whiskey that I drank on Burns Night. So
just not count whiskey or Burns Night.
Well, we agreed that we would be allowed to have whiskey for the toasts because it's Burns Night. So I am drinking, in fact, a bottle of Christmas Shiraz that my grandma bought for me, and it's fine.
I thought that was
Laura's grandma. If you're listening,
Sheila is not listening to this.
Sorry, Malky, you were saying?
Sheila, if you're listening to this, you're going to hear a lot of angry things being said about Boris Johnson, which I know you don't necessarily agree with. So maybe just turn it off now.
It's not for you, Sheila.
It's not for you.
We love you.
I love you, though.
Malky, what were you saying about the wine?
I thought it was going to be a bottle of whiskey. I was drinking, I was allowed a little bit of whiskey, but now I'm drinking a whole bottle of whiskey.
No.
And I am drinking, what the hell is this?
It looks like a green smoothie from where I'm sat.
Yeah, it's some blue smoothie. And
smoothie? What is in a blue smoothie?
Spirulina, which is good for the... It's like spirulina is a kind of blue-green algae. And it's supposedly very good for your immune system. As is ginger, which I have also in here, and also an effervescent tablet of vitamin C. So it's terribly healthy.
Very healthy.
Because I'm on some medication that I am semi-worried is going to kill me tonight, and alcohol is bad to go with it, apparently. So until I'm sure that this stuff won't kill me, because I only started taking it recently, it's for anxiety. So can you tell that I need it?
It's clearly going great.
Yeah, that's weird, Jonty. It doesn't sound like you're anxious about anything. Absolutely not.
Yep, totally fine.
Everything.
Yeah, a man drinking a blue-green algae smoothie at 5 to 9 in the evening is a sign of
taking this man
perfectly fine.
To be fair, I was just like, I cannot face drinking. I had a rooibos tea, and I was like, if all I drink is a rooibos tea, I'm going to be so fucking disappointed with life generally.
I had rooibos tea for the first time the other day, and it's delicious.
It's fine. Although I find that if you drink a lot of it, you go through phases of thinking this is great, and then going, the smell of this turns my very stomach.
Fair.
If you're listening to this and you've ever had rooibos tea, tell us, or Red Bush, if that's what you think it's called. Do tell us whether you loathe or love it. I feel like it's one of those things.
And that's a good segue into a joke that's made in the infamous book Incredulous Moshoeshoe and the Lightning Bird by J.W. Langley. Deep cuts.
That's a really fucking deep cut. I forgot we were going to be doing this one. Yeah. What is Incredulous Moshoeshoe and the Lightning Bird, Laura?
Wow. It's a great book. It's the new bestseller. Available now on Amazon. If you liked American Gods by Neil Gaiman, then you'll like this. It's that, but more Afrocentric and Gothic, which is what I said on the TikTok that I made about it that I haven't edited yet.
That's amazing. Yeah, because Laura has a BookTok TikTok account called
Laura Beth Books. You don't have to follow it.
You do have to follow it. If you're a fan, if you claim to be a fan of Beer Christianity, you have to follow.
And
Laura
you should
Beth
follow
Books.
Beer Christianity on TikTok also.
Oh shit, yeah. Beer Christianity is also on TikTok. And yes, I have a novel. It has been published. It is on Amazon. I will at some point be selling it on my website. I've been struggling to get PayPal to take it. And yes, I know Amazon sucks, but small publisher, that's the only way you're going to get it. So Amazon it is. Incredulous Moshoeshoe and the Lightning Bird by J.W. Langley. And I think I should just let people work out how to spell Moshoeshoe. I think that's
fun.
If you don't know how to spell Moshoeshoe, you're probably a racist. I think that's the.
I have a question about the book.
Mm-hmm.
Well, more about you. Why did you decide to go JW and not Jonty or Jonathan?
I don't really know. I don't know if you know this, but I have psychological problems.
Emotional damage.
And I sometimes get paranoid about connecting my different parts of my life because, connecting J.W. Langley with Jonty Langley would be really hard to do. When I was writing for the Baptist Times, I think I wrote as Jonathan Langley and then got super paranoid because I was working for the Baptist Missionary Society and people did not like what I was saying in the newspaper. And, so started splitting these things up, but not effectively, not any kind of pseudonym type thing. So J.W. Langley, really just because of the great tradition of fantasy writers, because it's kind of horror urban fantasy, Tolkien, Tolkien.
Clive Staples Lewis.
Clive Staples Lewis, and this is Jolkin Waples Langley. That's
Langley, Wangley.
Langley is the name. So yeah. That's what it's called. And
a great cover designed by Malky Curry.
Malky, what was your inspiration?
Malky, what's your middle name?
Vargas. It's Vargas.
Murray Furry Curry.
Murray Furry Curry, tell us your inspiration for the book cover of Incredulous Moshoeshoe and the Lightning Bird, out now on Amazon.
No, I'm going to get a hold of it and I'm going to read it.
Mm.
Do you not have a copy?
Son of a bitch.
I had like a Word document format.
Yeah, that was free, man.
An email.
I need people to put reviews on Amazon, or no one's ever.
I have the Word document format, and I still want a book.
Yeah.
No, this is what I'm saying. Oh. That was a difficult user experience because every time I shut my phone down, and then you have to scroll back to where you were.
Yeah, garbage.
Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, that's terrible.
Do you know that even if you put a PDF into the Kindle app, it won't mark your pages for you? Because I learned that the hard way.
Seriously?
Yeah, it was garbage.
Oh, wow.
That's why I didn't read it when you gave it to me as PDF.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
The inspiration was extensive conversations with Jonathan Langley.
Or J.W. Langley.
J.W. actually. Yeah. Is Jonathan Langley related to Jangly Wangley?
A totally different guy. A lot of groovy album covers, basically. And then also, so I feel like I don't know nothing about the book because we had extensive, one version of the cover was going to be a load of the characters illustrated on the cover.
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
So I've got a notepad with hastily scribbled descriptions of all the main characters.
That's fun.
Genuinely fun. It's not like, we didn't go with that. That was a waste of time. It was like, that was, and he has what now? And are they sisters or?
She's wearing a diving helmet?
Yeah.
He has a what slung over his shoulder? Unbelievable.
And why is it important that it's so long? Yeah.
Hey, that's not my idea. That's from Southern African folklore. The Tokoloshe has a very big dick. So,
and if you want to read more about that big dick, you should head to Amazon right now.
As recommended and on the website incredulousbook.com, Laura is in fact one of the testimonials there. She's one of the quotes. Sarky bitch says it's a little bit like Graham Greene and a lot like Jonty Langley. So yeah, there
you go. I think my favorite story about the book is how your publisher sent them to you.
The publisher sends me this thing saying your author copies are coming. Here's a kind of screenshot of Amazon's delivery thing, and it was Jonty did cut the United Kingdom. I'm that famous, guys. I don't know how anybody's going to know who Jonty is when they're looking for Jangly Wangley, but
and it made it to your house.
It turns out the rest of the stuff was actually on the actual dispatch label, but I was for a moment super fucking impressed with how famous I was around here.
I mean, because this will surprise no one, but that sort of thing would happen in Orkney. Oh, yeah. He would just be across it and be like, oh, he lives down there. Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get into the rest of the podcast, let's get into some listener feedback. So we have an email. Laura, do you want to read us the email?
I can read you the email. Let me just pull it up on my phone. So this is from Ginger. She says, I think this is in reference to short episode 59, which I haven't listened to. But she says, thoughts. 1, if anyone and everyone is a Christian, just because they claim to be the term is rather useless. 2, Keep in mind the after the battle scene with Azam. It seems that there might be something that matters besides what tags one hangs on oneself. 3. I'll hang my hat with Brad Jerzak and say I'm a follower of Jesus. Inept at times, but aiming in that direction. I prefer not to call myself a Christian. 4. I also like how WM Paul Young handles it. When asked if he's a Christian, he asks, you tell me what it means and I'll tell you if I am one or not. Thank you for your podcast that helped me think in various ways without my needing to have a college degree of some sort. Happy Christmas, Ginger.
Happy Christmas, Ginger.
Happy Christmas,
Sorry,
Ginger.
it's
Happy
been
New
so
Year.
freaking long.
Hey, it's better
Happy
than
New Year.
last time.
Happy New Year.
I like I'm well on board with the last couple of points. They're my people, Brad Jerzak and the other bloke. I believe that's the author of The Shack, and I've heard him on a couple of podcasts more recently. Do any of you guys know is it a reference to the last battle off of Narnia?
I have not read Narnia, I don't know if I can call myself a Christian, really.
I have, but I'm struggling to remember what she's referring to. It's been a while.
But anyway, those parameters of the breadth of how we might define ourselves as a Christian, or saying, oh, I'm a Jesus follower, or we may be put off by people's understanding of Christianity. But yeah, I like the way that that suggests opening a conversation. What do you mean by Christian? What's in your mind?
Yeah, I think that's cool as well.
And me and my wife were talking about this recently, just in terms of where we're both at with faith. But yeah, it feels very subjective in many ways about what we mean by Christian. Because I think to us, then it means quite a specific conservative evangelical, which is how we both grew up. And therefore, in some senses, I think my wife was saying like that she doesn't feel like she's a Christian in terms of what that used to mean to her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think I was trying to convince her that actually the breadth of the term, I think she's still a Christian. Like she still thinks there's a God. Jesus was the Son of God.
Yeah, because if you do that, then don't you kind of side with the guys who have an incredibly narrow view of what a real Christian is? You know, because I remember when I had just been saved as a fundamentalist, and I didn't believe that any cultural Christian who hadn't had a conversion experience was really a Christian. And anyone who didn't hold to what I thought of as evangelical, but was actually fundamentalist teaching, was really a Christian. So I would think of it as real Christians. And then the rest of them, including probably the entire breadth of, Anglicanism and most Catholics, because I think I had more time for them because at least they had mysticism, that would all have been kind of like, I don't know, written off. And if you stick to that definition of Christian, then you kind of exclude all of those people. Because I think the episode 59 is really about when you say things like, well, Christians believe X, Y, and Z, and realizing later that that's a ridiculous statement to make, that you can't really put that on all Christians, not all Christians. I wouldn't want to leave the term to them, to the people who are already excluding Catholics and post-evangelicals and people who are just a little bit more liberal than them,
Yeah. And I'm just very mindful, like, the vast majority of my friends growing up weren't Christians or church people, so I'm always kind of run it through a filter of like, how does it sound to them? The kind of nuances that seem huge to us, even like now the church I go to is, fairly liberal and progressive and more of a cafe church. But it's just like, do you believe in Jesus? Do you believe in Jesus and go somewhere on a Sunday? Then it's like, yeah, oh, right, you're a Christian. Like,
do you gather together with other people who believe in Jesus, who have a fondness for the Bible? And do you occasionally talk to somebody really powerful who you can't see? You're probably a Christian. Yeah. It's like that thing of going, and again, there's nothing wrong with it. And I totally understand why people don't want to call themselves Christians, because of the hurt, because of the thing. And I have a friend who is he lives in the States. He says he just cannot associate himself with that word because that word means Trumpism and all that kind of stuff. But I do. It does make me think of the stuff that was really popular in the church when I became a Christian, which was like, it's not a religion, it's a relationship. And I remember having this conversation with you early on, Malky, of like, yeah, but it's kind of a religion. If you what any normal person would think of as a religion, it is a fucking religion. Like, it may also be a relationship. But yeah. Laura, you have been raised in the church as well. So do you have an issue? Because I think I have less of an issue with the word, probably because I wasn't raised as a Christian. So as a convert, I'm like, well, these assholes don't get to define it for me because I kind of came to this and chose it or was chosen by it,
Yeah, I think I wouldn't really say that I necessarily have an issue with it either way. Like, I think growing up in the church like that is just kind of how you define yourself in a lot of ways. And yeah, like, it is. I think a lot of people, obviously, you do have a relationship with the word. Like, I think actually, like what you were saying, Malky, about like thinking about how you identify in relationship to the word Christian, I think is important to figure out. But also, I agree with you guys a lot in that I think it just does. I think the thing of like, I'm not going to call myself a Christian. One, I think is quite a Western viewpoint of Christianity, for one thing. And two, it's just going to create more disunity. Like, I feel like there's a kind of going on down to like the nitty gritty of like, as we know, I go to a more conservative church than like, I don't necessarily hold the beliefs that my church as a whole belief, but I'm not going to go in there and be like, well, you guys, I'm not going to call myself a Christian because I don't agree with like what you guys believe, or like you guys shouldn't be calling yourself Christians because obviously that's ludicrous. It would be ridiculous and unnecessary, and it would just not be a helpful thing to do in a scenario like that. So as you said, like, I totally understand why people don't feel able to call themselves Christians, and people in different contexts who wants to distance themselves from like that stuff. That's absolutely fair. That's your own relationship with that. But personally, I don't really feel the need to distance myself from calling myself a Christian. But I also do like you tell me what that means and I'll tell you what I am, if I am or not. I think that's
superb. Yeah. And then in the context, you can kind of, also just semantically, again, like, it's not a religion, just we should move all we don't want any Christian books under the religion section in the bookshop. Okay, but it's going to be really hard for people to find them. If we put them under relationships and romance, sex and the body,
it's just like, sometimes comms are good.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Okay, we also had an amazing Ginger, thank you so much for that, by the way. That was really cool. Thank you. And I think super helpful. And also the other part of what you were saying, if everything counts as Christian, anything that claims to be Christian, I think there has to be some kind of delineation, right? There has to be, at least in our own minds, if the word Christian has any meaning, or follower of Jesus has any meaning. No, we can't be prescriptive to other people, but like, what would you define as a Christian broadly? I mean, you kind of said it earlier, Malky, but what's your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I want to quote the Westminster Confession of Faith verbatim. I can't remember it. I think it's long. but yeah, because of my persuasion, then it's like creeds all come to mind. You believe in the Bible is the word of God, and Jesus was born of a virgin and all that. You know what I mean?
How much of the creeds, what percentage of the creeds that you used to identify as the defining features of Christianity do you still believe?
It's a good one. And I was looking at that recently. I think I just like, with a lot of them, I kind of have a different relationship with, of like, maybe if I redefine all those words, then yeah, I can, like.
And every conservative listening to this is like, you see, liberals, you see.
This is what happens. Yeah. Because the Bible, for instance, like, I could say inspired word of God. Yeah, I'm happy with that, I think.
Yeah.
But like that would mean it's a book that's heavily influenced by God and contains a lot of truth, and probably the most truthy book we have, as opposed to being a very literalist or inerrantist interpretation. But like, I think creeds, I read the Anglican or the Church of England Creed recently because that's what I do for fun. And I remember thinking that just the tone of it was a lot more just chilled out and cool. The Church of England one versus the Evangelical Alliance was the other one I was looking at. That was a bit more like rigid and we believe this. Like there was a tone of or else rather than like, this is what we think we agree on.
Generally speaking. Yeah, I think evangelicals are a lot more willing to just cut people out and go, yeah, you're not one of us. Whereas the Church of England does not have that.
Which in some ways, like, I think I do kind of have respect for that, like things like that. It just like, I've heard stories of people who, like I have somebody I knew at university has a transgender brother, and her like home church family, when he came out, they had like kind of their church had always painted themselves as like, well, anyone is welcome, everyone's welcome here, but then were then treated very badly by their church because they had a transgender son, and actually their kind of response was that if not everyone is going to be welcome, it's not saying that's okay, but like say that, don't just say like everyone's welcome and be like actually like be upfront about it. Don't like if you're going to have those views, then like be upfront about it and kind of say it there so that people know where they stand with it. Rather
and on
than
the other side, don't paint yourself as a traditionalist church. Like my wife went to a Bible study once, and she's an Anglican, so she was not surprised by this massively. But I was horrified, and this was long after I was a fundamentalist, where somebody in the Bible study, this is where we're studying scripture and doctrine and kind of getting in on this, and somebody had said, "Don't even talk to me about God the Father." Maybe we can talk about Jesus, maybe the Spirit, but don't even talk to me about God the Father. Now, I understand people have tricky relationships with their fathers, but the Trinity is not a fucking controversial topic to be able to at least talk about in a Bible study.
Yeah. Also, of the Trinity, you're gonna go for God the Father?
I don't. Yeah, I guess Old Testament-y type stuff, and no shade on the person personally, but also, I do find that frustrating of like, that's totally fine if we're talking down the pub, but at some point, if you're running a doctrinal Bible study and someone's like, I'm afraid nobody can talk about one member of the Trinity or Trinitarianism at all. Admittedly, the Bible doesn't talk about it, in the word, but it's still, come on.
You don't need to derail the whole Bible study.
Yeah, that's more the issue for me, really.
Yeah.
What would you say defines a Christian, Laura?
I don't know whether I would want to tell somebody what defines them as a Christian. I don't know, it's tricky because I don't want, on the one hand, I don't want to say, no, if you are this, then you are a Christian, or no, if you're not this, then you're not a Christian, or whatever. I don't know if I said that right at all. But also on the other hand, I do think you should have some kind of active faith. Maybe that's what I think. I think if you call yourself a Christian, you should be actively doing what you think a Christian should do, rather than just being baptized as a baby and calling yourself a Christian and going to church every Christmas, which I don't really think happens that often anymore nowadays.
Well, you had Bishop Spong, who died a few months ago, or probably half a year ago now. I know, cool name. Who was, called himself a Christian, but didn't really think we should pray to God, didn't think that there should, maybe I'm caricaturing him a little bit, but it was a very secularist Christian.
He certainly didn't believe that the resurrection was an actual thing.
Yeah, definitely not that. But I think he was
a bishop.
He was in the Episcopal American Anglican Church. And that, I think, is the problem, is that there's got to be a line, but maybe we need to think about it as like a spectrum, like all things, like, where you could be closer to Orthodox Christianity, and we can recognize what the traditional understanding of Christianity has been for the last 2,000 years, and admit that evangelicalism is actually a little bit of a deviation from that. Fundamentalism is quite a deviation from a lot of that because of what it excludes. Yeah. But equally, atheist Christianity is probably fairly wildly, divergent.
Because it's a difference between, I think there is a difference between what we would say defines somebody as a Christian and the kind of things you would allow a position in leadership to believe or preach on in terms of like, so for example, in my church, it's a forgotten the word for it now, but women are not allowed to be women are not able to be in leadership at the church that I go to. Complementarian, that's the word it is. Complementarian church, and in order to be an elder or a leader of the church, you have to believe that as part of your thing. Now, they're not going to tell you that you can, for one, you are allowed to be a member of the church and not believe that. They're also not going to turn around and tell me, well, you're not a Christian because you believe that. However, they would not, obviously, as a woman, they wouldn't let me lead in church. So I think there is a difference there in terms of like, you know, you may not want somebody like that to necessarily be a bishop, but can you turn around and tell him that he's not a Christian?
That is a very good question. Yeah, because, I think that there is a practical thing of like, these are the things that are core to this fellowship. These are the things that are core to this denomination that are actually really important to us, even though we don't think that they are the defining features of Christianity. We feel like these are the hill to die on for this generation. But yeah, I don't know. So for me, I think if you don't believe that God is a separate being, you know, and this is where a lot of that, it's so weird because I'm coming to the point of going, theology has ruined my faith in God, so maybe I should abandon it. But I do remember being very annoyed with people who are like, I just want to read the Bible and follow Jesus and, you know, not bother with theology, which is obviously stupid because by having any interpretation of scripture, you are doing theology.
Yes.
But we've been doing this for over 2,000 years, followers of Jesus, right? A lot of very smart people have applied their brains to it. And there have been, this is not the first time this is being discussed. It has been from the beginning a question for us of like, okay, but who's in and who's out? And it's not just a first half of life trying to exclude people thing. I think it is also so that it doesn't get confusing, so that, like we were saying earlier, the words having a meaning is quite useful in order to have anything like a meaningful conversation about it. If we don't even know what it means to be a Christian, then what does it mean when we say, well, how we should treat people outside of the faith, for instance, and that sort of thing. So like, at least being aware of the fact that for part of our history as a church, it has been an issue, or in scripture, it's an issue to have a monotheist faith versus an animist faith, you know, of like, if God is a pantheist or an animist God, that's quite different from a monotheist creator God. And they're different things. They're different views of what God is. And yeah, I don't know, like if you can't believe in God as an actual being, maybe you're not looking for a religion. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe you know, you keep using that word, but I don't think it means what you think it means. I mean, we can fucking call anything God, I guess, but like, is that helpful in just syntactically and semantically? Is it helpful?
Yeah, because I think the difficulty as well with a lot of this stuff is that like we've been doing it for 2,000 years, which in kind of human brain terms and societal terms and language terms, it's a very long time. Like a lot has changed for us as humanity in that time, and a lot of views have changed on different things. A lot of views have been introduced on different things in that time. And I'm not just talking about like, you know, it's 2022 and we're all fucking liberals, like all that jazz. Yeah. It's, you know, Victorian Puritanism and stuff like that is so ingrained into how society as we see it now, but that didn't actually come from the church and the Bible, but it's just how we perceive it because of how we perceived it 100 years ago. Well, yeah. So like it is really difficult to kind of, because things have got so muddled because we keep changing our minds about what everything means and splitting off into different sects and have done so for 2,000 years.
Bloody Protestants. Actually, not 2,000 years, you know, because anyone who did that before was just a heretic and shut out, you know, which is much simpler.
Yeah. But I didn't have anything further to say on that.
And I've forgotten what I was about to say. It's going to be good.
Wait for it. Oh,
so there's also like a main guy, you know, the clues in the name of Christians, the old JC. That's the one, followers of Chris. So I think just there's got to be a basic understanding of following the teachings of Jesus, And I think for me as well, something that keeps me a bit anchored is I can't just cherry pick a couple of things around the fringes. If I'm willing to accept actually a lot might be influenced by humans or by culture or whatever, then for me, it's still coming back to there's got to be a main, what was the main thing Jesus was about? If you mentioned something a bunch of times, caring for the poor or forgiveness, or loving your enemies, then it's that seems pretty fundamental. And I think that brings us on to, I'm not sure if this is what you mentioned in your short, Jonty, because I can't remember it, but I did definitely listen.
Totally.
But the way that actually we would judge others, and I'm sure we've done on the podcast, with Trump or, the religious right going how's that in any way following the teachings of Jesus?
Yeah.
So we are, there is a common basic understanding of,
absolutely.
I guess that sense also we're holding them to what they claim to believe as well, Yeah. They claim to believe quite a tight doctrine and ethic.
And I think there's a difference again, because I think in the short, this is the kind of thing I would definitely have said is about George W. Bush and he claimed to be a born again Christian, but, was responsible along with Tony Blair for the completely needless deaths of hundreds of thousands, at least, of Iraqis. So what do we do with that? And I don't think you can go, he's not a Christian just because I don't like the way he behaves. He could well be a Christian. He just may be a shit Christian. And I think we should probably normalize calling people shit Christians, including ourselves.
Maybe even change the name of the podcast.
Shit Christianity.
Shit Christianity. Because it hasn't excluded enough people from it, the current title. We need to really niche down. That's the key.
We need an actual swear in the title.
Okay. We have spent quite a lot of time on that one. I do want to talk about this wonderful message that we got from a lady called Jen, who got in touch on Twitter and said, "Hey, Jonty, assuming it's you that runs the Twitter, otherwise orcs. Just wanted to say, loved your last week short about law. I was singing exactly all the way through, which was awkward because I was at work, but there you go. The one example I always think of with this is refugees. It's illegal to flee war in the wrong way, but not to drop the bombs on people and start a war. WTF is that about? I also love the short on not just becoming holier than thou liberals doing exactly the same thing as the in-out gatekeeping crew, but in the opposite direction. This has become my daily mantra to prevent me hunting down Tories and trying to slap some compassion into them. So cheers for that. Thanks for what you guys do. You are awesome." She also, and Jen, I really hope you don't mind. Well, I mean, there's a lot of Jens out there. So if you want to disown this, just say it's not about me. I don't know what you're talking about. I got into a bit of a discussion with her and she said, I actually discovered you when I was horrifically hungover and didn't dare go to my then scary conservative church. And I found you guys and did church with you for a Sunday instead. And it was fab. And I've been here ever since. So I think that may be one of the coolest ways anybody has come to find beer Christianity.
Come to faith in beer Christianity.
Come to faith. Has accepted you, me, and Malky as her personal. I can't even do it. That's how much I can't do it.
We found a line.
On my music podcast, I so badly, everything in me wanted to say, you need to accept Geordie Kieffer as your personal Lord and Savior. And I just couldn't. I was like, I can't do it. I think I compromised and said personal Lord and shaver because I think that's more Geordie anyway.
As you should, really. Yeah. So also a big moment in my life recently was when I DM'd Geordie Kieffer on Instagram and he replied to me.
Unbelievable. That's huge.
Don't brag, guys.
Just want to say that I can't believe we led with my book and not that, because that, frankly,
that's
book
a genuine.
I loved it for so many people who are like, in the beer Christianity zeitgeist, that's such a big thing, but to literally no one else.
Actually, the biggest fans of Geordie Kieffer that I know are us three plus Drabs.
Yep.
It's amazing.
And if you want to join in on that, you should listen to Agro Pop by Geordie Kieffer and Don't
the
be
entire
mad.
EP is incredible.
Don't be mad at us when we send it your way.
It's so good.
So good.
Speaking of slapping compassion into Tories, so I 100% agree with that. And well, maybe not literally, but also I don't think she meant it literally. But we have been having some news in the UK about our Prime Minister lying, not apologizing, pretend apologizing, having a whole bunch of his cronies having parties while other people were being prosecuted or prevented from seeing loved ones during lockdown. And a whole bunch of people are freaking out about that. I find it kind of annoying because I want people to be angry with his awful policies domestically and in terms of foreign policy. I want people to be mad about the fact that they have been privatizing and selling off for scrap the NHS. I want them to be mad about the cuts to all sorts of social care budgets. I want them to be mad about a whole bunch of policy issues, but instead they're mad about the fact that he had a party when other people couldn't. Am I unreasonable, Laura? Because I think you think I am being unreasonable. So let's hear it.
Before I do jump onto that, I just want to pull one thing up from the message that Jen sent. Thank you once again, Jen, for your lovely message. But about like legality and stuff, and the point she makes about it being illegal to claim asylum and not to drop bombs. Not illegal to claim asylum. Let's just clear the record with that. I'm not calling you out, Jen. I'm calling out Priti Patel and all of her lovely cronies who claim that it's illegal to claim asylum in the UK. It is not. There is, yeah, it is. And when they say that there's, people who have like come to the UK and claimed asylum legally rather than all these horrendous people who are crossing the Channel in boats. No, that is a perfectly fine way to claim asylum. You're allowed to claim asylum in a country that you end up in if you have fled the situation. Anyway, that being cleared up, I do kind of think I think you are both correct and incorrect in that.
Schrodinger's Jonty.
I do agree that people should be mad at Boris Johnson for being a shit prime minister in general, and also mad at the Tories for being a shit leadership party in general, and
for being Tories. And like, I think that if you look closely at the things you are angry about in your life currently, a lot of those things will point back to 10 years of Tory rule. And Labour light rule, to be honest,
before that. However, I don't think you should be annoyed at people who are angry at Boris Johnson now. I think they do have a right to be angry about it, because like it is a very emotional thing that people are going through. Like for those people, for one thing, that the people who have genuinely like lost loved ones in the pandemic, and you're hearing so many stories about like horrendous things of people. There was I saw a guy on like Sky News who'd lost like 3 members of his family and within 2 weeks. It was horrendous from COVID, but
couldn't go to funerals, people who couldn't be present at the birth of their children. Couldn't see people in hospital as they died,
and still can't as well. And it's not like absolutely you have a right to be angry about those things. And also it's the fact that I think the thing that's pissing me off particularly, I've got into the habit of watching Prime Minister's Questions, which is maybe a bad habit to get into, but I do enjoy the drama. I'm greatly awaiting the day that the speaker throws somebody out, because it sounds like a great time. But all he does is deflect it. And it's so enraging, because he's like, they'll say some comment about, will you resign? Parties. And he'll say, well, the thing that the British public are mad about is Ukraine versus Russia, which obviously a horrendous situation, not denying that.
And also the British public is dumb enough that if enough tabloids push that, they will then focus on that, let's be honest.
That's not what the public are focusing on right now, and you know that. And like, you have lied multiple times, and like, it's just not going to happen. I think
you're right. I think it's okay for people to be angry about this. Malky, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, it reminds me of animal charities, No.
I'm
going to pluck a statistic that I just made up out there. That more people give to animal charities than they do human ones or something. But anyway, there's a thing in charity fundraising just about anything that may be in any way political puts people off, and there's less money given to that just because that brief moment to think of like, oh, I may be taking a side here. So often, where it seems like there is a completely innocent victim with no political side taken. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm just saying things that like, it's the whole PR game, isn't it? Is what plays well. So I think this seems like someone that everyone can get on board with. We've all been through lockdown. We've all suffered to a greater or lesser extent. And Boris was literally on the telly telling us what to do. Don't do that. Don't do this. Don't see people. These are the rules. We've come up with the rules, and we think these are the rules to help everybody and keep us all safe. We stand behind these rules.
Yeah.
And then going off and not observing those rules. And again, it's like, unlike the Dominic Cummings, trip to see a castle one time, this was like the sheer amount of the parties or whatever gatherings that the Tories seem to have. Like, it really paints a picture that they really didn't care. And they really didn't try and observe the rules, and it was an ongoing disregard for them. Which leaves us with a thinking that's like, did they not they didn't think they applied to them, or they didn't really believe in social distancing.
I guess but that's the part that I probably have the least, and I know this is not a popular view, but I have the least time for they didn't obey the rules. Because honestly, depending on the rules, fuck the rules. Do you know what I mean? Like, and the fact that a lot of people are obeying the rules it's not a reason to obey the rules. The reason to obey the rules is because you put them on other people. You came up with them, or they're actually going to help, So again, like, I remember at the beginning of the lockdown, and I don't know if this is a purely UK thing or if it's happened everywhere when there were rules in, but I remember people getting angry because they saw somebody in a park sitting by themselves when the rule was you were only allowed to go out walking, that was a stupid fucking rule. It was a panic rule, and people who didn't obey that rule are fine. People who were gathering together at a time when the NHS was under immense pressure because of the spread of the virus, and who were spreading the virus and therefore were directly responsible for people dying because the hospitals were overwhelmed, that's a problem. Not breaking the rules. It's about the callous disregard for me. And maybe this is just a question of semantics, but I always worry when we get righteous about people not following rules. I see it in the New Testament where people are like, the disciples, they're breaking the rules. And Jesus has to go, dude, the Sabbath was made for humanity and not the other way around, or if you really think it's a problem to heal on the Sabbath, you're an idiot. Or if people walking through a field and gathering some grain is a problem for you because it's breaking the rule against working on the Sabbath, you're an idiot. I'm paraphrasing, of course. Like, his attitude to rules is not absolutist. And I think that for me is the thing with this, is be angry with them with more nuance. That's what I want, even if it's about the same thing. I don't know. Is that, Laura, you're looking at me like that's unreasonable as well? I
don't think it's necessarily unreasonable. However, I think that more nuance is worse comms. And True. I think if this is what's going to get, I think this is good enough comms to at least get Boris out. And, it's not necessarily good enough for me, but it's certainly a step in the right direction. So I feel like, actually, yes, I agree. I do agree with a lot of your points. But if this is the thing that's going to get people on board and it's going to get people to send in letters of no confidence against the Prime Minister, go right ahead. And I done.
I detest this guy specifically, but if his party stays in power, if people continue to vote for a party,
if Rishi Sunak becomes the new Prime Minister, it will.
How is that better? Because there's going to be a whole bunch of people saying, oh well, it's the first non-white Prime Minister of Britain. This is not better any more than Margaret Thatcher being the first non-male.
Kamala Harris being the first female Prime Minister, Vice President.
Vice President, exactly.
Good Lord.
We need to be slightly less shallow than that and recognize that the damage is being done by policy, not people.
And I imagine that I'm in a quite echo chamber area of Twitter, but I don't think you would see it in the same way that you would in America, kind of lauding Kamala Harris, at least at the beginning, maybe less so now. I don't think you would see the same lauding of Rishi Sunak. I mean,
the left here don't fall as much.
We're not really
stuff, but yeah.
What's the right thing about let's go Brandon? I feel like we're not really let's go Brandon.
Are so lame. They're so lame. Oh my word.
Yeah, I mean that is We're not really that kind of vibe.
No.
We're more of a get Ding Dong the Witch is Dead to the top of the charts when Margaret Thatcher dies kind of vibe.
And a lot of jokes about public urinals and
sorry, this is a complete tangent, but wasn't there a song that was like there was like a Fuck Boris Johnson song that got to like almost Christmas #1.
It almost made it.
Almost made it to Christmas #1 this year, which you gotta appreciate the
British public for that. At least those on the socialist left.
That objectively is funny.
Malky.
I don't know how it's all going to pan out, but there's a sense in which Boris goes yay, and then someone who's a bit more competent and looks like they don't live in a bin leads the Tory party. And then, we come around to a general election and suddenly the public are again like, the Tories seem to be doing an all right job. Let's vote them in again.
Yeah. Especially if Keir Starmer's running for Labour.
Oh, my word. Although the nice...
They surely are not. I reckon they'll change leadership before
I do hope so. There's now been this ridiculous baseless smear campaign linking him to Jimmy Savile and all sorts of stuff.
Which isn't true. This is completely untrue. And that's why a load of, I think tonight, a load of high ministers to Boris Johnson have resigned. I think at least 2 today, because Boris Johnson told Parliament that Keir Starmer didn't prosecute Jimmy Savile.
For Americans, Keir Starmer is the head of the Democrats, but imagine Joe Biden, but not as left-wing.
More of a wet wipe.
And who also has, and this is the part that I think is really interesting, Keir Starmer has overseen a purging of socialists, including the former head of the Labour Party, on the basis of if you are critical of Israel, you're anti-Semitic, is a kind of shorthand for it, and has presided over Jeremy Corbyn, the previous Labour head, being, I think, persecuted as an anti-Semite when he is a lifelong anti-racist campaigner. So it's hard to feel sorry for fucking Keir Starmer. Keir baseless Starmer things.
Has removed people from the party who just so happen to all be actually left-wing.
Yeah, exactly. And he has done it on the basis of ridiculous accusations. So him facing some ridiculous accusations, still terrible that it's being done, but also couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
But it literally is a straight up lie.
So would you see
so Boris Johnson in Parliament said to Keir Starmer that he didn't prosecute Jimmy Savile when he was in some kind of position where he could have done. I don't know the exact details. Jimmy Savile, by the way, nonce.
Nonce, by the way, paedophile. It's difficult to translate this country into the world.
But he said that the other day. Not true. A lie said in Parliament, and Boris Johnson didn't retract it, which I've become
because
quite
you can
the
say
expert
anything
about.
In Parliament.
Did you not say in Parliament? He said it as
no. You can say anything in Parliament, and you are protected by parliamentary privilege, except calling somebody in Parliament a liar, which you're not allowed to say.
But you aren't allowed to knowingly lie to the House of Commons.
Yeah, you're not allowed to call someone a liar.
Yeah, so
that's the rule.
That's the rule.
That seems like democracy to me.
Complicated.
That seems fine.
But because Boris Johnson hasn't retracted that statement or because he didn't admit that he was lying or something like that. I don't know. A load of people have resigned over it, basically.
Again, you're resigning over that.
Yeah.
You're not resigning over the people who have lost their lives because of your policies. I can't think of you as a hero. I guess you're doing the right thing, but it's kind of like going, Hitler, we were with you right up until the point where, you started burning the books because we fucking love books. You're like, okay, but other stuff, the anti-Semitism has been running up to this. That's fine by you? I don't know.
So the other thing that this is hopefully doing is catching Boris Johnson openly and knowingly misleading Parliament. Because that's a thing, isn't it?
So this is look at me, kind of resident English politics correspondent for Beer Christianity. Watched his Prime Minister's questions twice, but I think my understanding of the inquiry that was done into the parties is that it doesn't say in the report that Boris Johnson knew that the parties were happening. Now,
he was just at some of them.
One of the parties happened at his house. He also did go to one of the parties, but didn't know that it was a party, even though after he had told the Commons that there was no parties, that he was then furious about the fact that there had been parties, that he hadn't known about it, but then that he had been told that there were parties, but that they followed the rules. It's a shit show. If it's a shit show.
Now, to be fair, the man is an idiot. No, this is not
he's
true.
Not.
He's not an idiot. He's a calculating scumbag.
He's a calculating scumbag who
idiot.
only cares about his own interests.
And this is, again, bringing us back to George W. Bush. George W. Bush was legitimately an idiot. And that's why I think it's easier to rehabilitate his image, because still ultimately responsible for hundreds of thousands of deaths, so essentially a murderer, but at least an idiot.
Yeah.
Whereas Johnson's not an idiot.
No, he wants his own. He wants to keep his party in power, and he wants lots of money doing it, and he will do so at the risk of destroying just innocent lives in this country.
I'm just going to say thanks everybody who voted for him, and thanks everybody who believed the ridiculous stuff printed by newspaper after newspaper about Jeremy Corbyn, so they didn't vote for Corbyn and they pushed the Labour Party into a freefall, or assisted the right-wingers of the Labour Party into imploding Labour so that it was no longer viable. Thanks, guys. Thanks for your lack of confidence in your own political compass that led you to go, well, shit, they've said it a lot, so maybe it is true. I'm not confident enough in myself. Get an ideology. What's wrong with you?
Also, for our American listeners or non-British, if you're unfamiliar with Prime Minister's questions, take a look. It's mental.
That's cray.
I try not to watch it because it makes me sad.
Oh, it makes me so angry.
Basically, just a posh version of just like lads in the pub, isn't it? Yeah. Like they use posh language, but the amount of like, oi, just
so much.
trying to diss each other. And the way they stand side on, so like they have to address the speaker, and they're addressing the opposite party, but they're kind of side on to their mates behind them, like, am I right? Hey, fucking pricks. Like, and everyone's jeering and that. It's just like,
it's mental. And like, not everyone has a seat. Yeah. Like, there's like not enough room in there for everyone to sit down, stood around.
But if that makes you angry, what makes me angrier is the people who are like, it's just not very dignified. And I think the problem is that there's so many men here. So there's a lad culture where people are shouting because it's just very undignified. And I'm always like, are you kidding me?
Get me in there. I'll shout about it.
Exactly. Like, this is important. This is okay to shout about. Football, stupid, not important to shout about. The fucking welfare of the rest of the country, totally fine to start shouting at people. I think that's okay. Be uncouth.
Also, in terms of shouting, unsurprisingly, well, from my perspective, Scottish people tend to win Prime Minister's questions. Like, there's just a lot of madness, and then somebody away in the corner who's nice and Scottish and indignant about something will just be like, oh yeah, you absolutely nailed it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It's also worth knowing that the previous speaker said order in quite the most spectacular way, in that he would go, order, order, which I enjoy.
Emotional damage.
Emotional damage.
Okay. No. I think that's about all we got time for. Final quick thoughts. In 2 sentences or less, what should Christians want from their political leaders? We may have to pick this up more in another one.
I think Jen had it absolutely right about slapping some compassion into them.
I'm assuming compassionate in a kind of policy sense rather than is nice to animals themselves, but cuts the welfare budget.
Yes.
Yeah, compassionate, empathetic, defending the weakest in society, right? That's what you should have. And a little bit of integrity would be nice, you know? Because that, again, that's the thing, like if Boris Johnson or whoever is happy to lie openly in front of everyone, like what are they happy to do behind closed doors that they're not going to get caught off, you know?
Yeah, I would probably be less on the integrity train just because I think you can have a lot of integrity and be ideologically appalling. And, you know, people always talk in this country about Ken Clark and all the good Tories. And, you know, in America, you're starting to see a lot of like old Republican rhetoric of like, well, the party in the past would have been much better, you know, as if the party of Reagan didn't destroy that country. And frankly, maybe this is bad. I don't care if you steal.
Just help the poor.
Just enact policies that change the system so that the poor and the weak can be protected and uplifted. And then
Jonty's ideal prime minister is Robin Hood.
Fucking yes. You know, like I'm okay with
Fox
it.
one from the Disney film.
Shoot some people. Don't shoot some people.
Don't
Obviously,
shoot some
it's
people.
not what I'm saying.
No,
but
no.
But like with a BB gun, consensually. You know, maybe that's fine. And that'll be the title of this one, Consensual BB Gun Politics, so that people have to listen the entire way through to work out what the hell it's about.
I thought it was going to be, we've hit the line.
We've hit the line. That's another good one. I like it.
Or shit Christianity.
Well, anyway, thanks so much for listening. You can find other episodes at beerchristianity.libsyn.com. You can find us on Twitter, beerchristianity, and you can email us at beerchristianity@yahoo.com. Please do send us messages. We do love it, and you can see it kind of sparks some thought. We didn't get to everybody's thoughts and questions and comments this time, so we will try and get to a few more later. Do check out my book, Incredulous Moshoeshoe and the Lightning Bird. Do check out Laura's TikTok and Malky's beautiful body. No, don't do that.
Don't do that, please.
Please don't do that. Okay, thank you for listening and bye.
Bye.